recording. And here we go. Let's get this party started. All right, A Course in Miracles, Chapter 18, Section 7, I Need Do Nothing. Still have too much faith in the body as a source of strength. What plans do you make that do not involve its comfort or protection or enjoyment in some way? This makes the body an end and not a means in your interpretation. And this always means you still find sin attractive. No one accepts at-one-ment for himself who still accepts sin as his goal. You have thus not met your one responsibility. At-one-ment is not welcomed by those who prefer pain and destruction. There is one thing that you have never done. You have not utterly forgotten the body. It has perhaps faded at times from your sight, but it has not yet completely disappeared. You are not asked to let this happen for more than an instant. Yet it is in this instant that the miracle of at-one-ment happens. Afterwards, you will see the body again, but never quite the same. And every instant that you spend without awareness of it gives you a different view of it when you return. At no single instant does the body exist at all. It is always remembered or anticipated, but never experienced just now. Only its past and future make it seem real. Time controls it entirely, for sin is never wholly in the present. In any single instant, the attraction of guilt would be experienced as pain and nothing else, and would be avoided. It has no attraction now. Its whole attraction is imaginary, and therefore must be thought of in the past or in the future. It is impossible to accept the holy instant without reservation, unless, just for an instant, you are willing to see no past or future. You cannot prepare for it without placing it in the future. Release is given you the instant you desire it. Many have spent a lifetime in preparation and have indeed achieved their instance of success. This course does not attempt to teach more than they learned in time, but it does aim at saving time. You may be attempting to follow a very long road to the goal you have accepted. It is extremely difficult to reach at-one-ment by fighting against sin. Enormous effort is expended in the attempt to make holy what is hated and despised. Nor is a lifetime of contemplation and long periods of meditation aimed at detachment from the body necessary. All such attempts will ultimately succeed because of their purpose. Yet the means are tedious and very time-consuming, for all of them look to the future for release from a state of present unworthiness and inadequacy. Your way will be different, not in purpose, but in means. A holy relationship is a means of saving time. One instant spent together with your brother restores the universe to both of you. You are prepared. Now you need but to remember, you need do nothing. It would be far more profitable now merely to concentrate on this than to consider what you should do. When peace comes at last to those who wrestle with temptation and fight against the giving into sin, when the light comes at last into the mind given to contemplation, or when the goal is finally achieved by anyone, it always comes with just one happy realization. I need do nothing. Here's the ultimate release, which everyone will one day find in his own way, at his own time. You do not need this time. Time has been saved for you because you and your brother are together. This is the special means this course is using to save you time. You're not making use of the course if you insist on using means which have served others well, neglecting what was made for you. Save time for me by only this one preparation, and practice doing nothing else. I need do nothing as a statement of allegiance, a truly undivided loyalty. Believe it for just one instant, and you will accomplish more than is given to a century of contemplation or of struggle against temptation. To do anything involves the body, and if you recognize you need do nothing, you've withdrawn the body's value from your mind. Here is the quick and open door through which you slip past centuries of effort and escape from time. This is the way in which sin loses all attraction right now. For here is time denied, and past and future gone. Who needs do nothing has no need for time. To do nothing is to rest and make a place within you where the activity of the body ceases to demand attention. Into this place, the Holy Spirit comes and there abides. He will remain when you forget, and the body's activities return to occupy your conscious mind. Yet there will always be this place of rest to which you can return, and you will be more aware of this quiet center of the storm than all its raging activity. This quiet center, in which you do nothing, will remain with you, giving you rest in the midst of every busy doing on which you are sent. Far from this center will you be directed how to use the body sinlessly. It is this center from which the body is absent that will keep it so in your awareness of it. That's such a good section. I know I've shared this so many times, but again, I'm going to share it because it's so relevant here. I was in a situation with my ex, right? And we had been divorced for years and we were getting along just fine, going to the kids' things, parties, events. And there was no physical attraction between us. We didn't want to be together. He had girlfriends, I had husbands. But we just kind of coexisted and it was fine. And we did that for the kids. And then he was in a relationship with a woman who did not want it that way. And she decided that we were no longer going to be friends and we were no longer going to be doing anything together. And as a matter of fact, he was not allowed to even talk to me. And it was so awkward and so weird for the kids. And I felt terrible that, you know, we'd be going to chorus concerts or baseball games or softball games or volleyball games. And here's my ex sitting in a different section. And when we did get all together after the event, we'd be standing in a circle and I literally felt like invisible. I wasn't acknowledged. He didn't say hello to me. She didn't say hello to me. And here's my kids standing here and we're all talking to them as if the other ones are invisible and don't exist. It was the craziest thing. So anyway, long story short, you know, of course I had tried to do everything, right? Invite them to dinner, go for a walk with her, invite her to coffee, try to explain to her that I wasn't interested in my ex. Like I had no interest at all in being with him. And she wanted no part of it. And I think the more I tried, the harder it got for him and the more he started pushing against it. And oh my gosh, finally got to the point where I was like crying because I was so upset for my kids because I thought, God, we had spent, you know, 10 years building this trust and this friendship after the divorce. And it was just so unfair now that this came in. And I remember going for a run and I put my shoes on. And of course, I had been doing A Course in Miracles, right? For years up to this point. And what's the one thing I didn't do? I didn't go inside and ask the Holy Spirit for help, right? Because I wanted to fix it. I was going to fix this thing that was wrong. So I went inside and I just said, please help me. Like, I don't know what to do. I've tried everything. Put my sneakers on, went for a run. And I would say maybe 5 or 10 minutes into the run, when your mind gets into that zone where you're not really thinking about anything, all of a sudden the words, you need do nothing, just came bounding into my head. And I was like, oh my gosh, like that's the one thing I hadn't done. Nothing. I thought I had to fix it. So I didn't do anything after that. I just let it go. And it felt like the weight of the world just lifted off of my shoulders to not have to try to fix that. And it was great. I mean, I felt like there was less tension with the kids when we were together or in those awkward situations. And within 6 months, the two of them broke up. So it was like it just took care of itself. Like I literally didn't need to do anything. So it was just such an interesting, interesting situation. So many times we get into places where we're like, I need to fix this. I need to do something to make this better. And really, we really just don't. We just need to let go.
And what you're emphasizing is the word need, which I find more or less gets left out of that when people read it. They focus on do or do nothing because we are taught to be human doings and not human beings. So we're all about what can I do, what should I do, what do I need to do, etc. And then people read that and they go like, oh, I'm supposed to do nothing. And the first retaliation, if you will, that I usually hear is, okay, so my kid falls and gets hurt, I'm supposed to do nothing, or a war happens, I'm supposed to do nothing. It's like, okay, let's re-explain. But one of the focuses that I find the key word in that sentence for me has been need. Because if you don't need to do something, you're under no obligation, then you are open to all of the possibilities, and then your choice or your motivation to, if you choose to act, what is going to be your choice? And usually it's something that motivates or excites you or contributes to your joy much more than out of a very narrow focus of I have to do this because my mommy said, or, I'll be looked at with a frown if I don't, or whatever the reasoning is for feeling like you have to versus you choose to. And that opportunity for choice rather, brings all kinds of joy and gratitude into the mix. And yes, you can choose to just step back and have faith that things will unfold as they need to, rather than you needing to make that happen.
Great point. Thank you, Mary. Yeah, that's such a good point. Then you're allowing joy to move through you and going from that place of love instead of fear. Yeah, choosing through love instead of the needing to do something through fear. I love that. All right. Any other comments or questions or shares? All right, then I will continue. Keep going to the little garden. All right. It is only the awareness of the body that makes love seem limited, for the body is a limit on love. The belief in limited love was its origin, and it was made to limit the unlimited. Think not that this is merely allegorical, for it was made to limit you. Can you see, can you who see yourself within a body know yourself as an idea? Everything you recognize, you identify with externals, something outside itself. You cannot even think of God without a body, or in some form you think you recognize. The body cannot know. And while you limit your awareness to its tiny senses, you will not see the grandeur that surrounds you. God cannot come into a body, nor can you join him there. Limits on love will always seem to shut him out and keep you apart from him. The body is a tiny fence around a little part of a glorious and complete idea. It draws a circle, infinitely small, around a very little segment of heaven, splintered from the whole, proclaiming that within it is your kingdom, where God can enter not. Within this kingdom, the ego rules, and cruelly. And to defend this little speck of dust, it bids you fight against the universe. This fragment of your mind is such a tiny part of it that could you but appreciate the whole, you would see instantly that it is like the smallest sunbeam to the sun, or like the faintest ripple on the surface of the ocean. In its amazing arrogance, this tiny sunbeam has decided it is the sun. This almost imperceptible ripple hails itself as the ocean. Think how alone and frightened is this little thought, this infinitesimal illusion, holding itself apart against the universe. The sun becomes the sunbeam's enemy that would devour it, and the ocean terrifies the little ripple and wants to swallow it. Yet, neither sun nor ocean is even aware of all this strange and meaningless activity. They merely continue, unaware that they are feared and hated by a tiny segment of themselves. Even that segment is not lost to them, for it could not survive apart from them. And what it thinks it is in no way changes its total dependence on them for its being. Its whole existence still remains in them. Without the sunbeam would be gone. The ripple without the ocean is inconceivable. Such is the strange position in which those in a world inhabited by bodies seem to be. Each body seems to house a separate mind, a disconnected thought, living alone and in no way joined to the thought by which it was created. Each tiny fragment seems to be self-contained, needing another for some things, but by no means totally dependent on its one creator for everything, needing the whole to give it any meaning, for by itself it does mean nothing, nor has it any life apart and by itself. Like to the sun and ocean, your self continues, unmindful that this tiny part regards itself as you. It is not missing. It could not exist if it were separate, nor would the whole be whole without it. It is not a separate kingdom ruled by an idea of separation from the rest, nor does a fence surround it, preventing it from joining the rest and keeping it apart from its creator. This little aspect is no different from the whole, being continuous with it and at one with it. It leads no separate life because its life is the oneness in which its being was created. Do not accept this little fenced-off aspect as yourself. The sun and ocean are as nothing beside what you are. The sunbeam sparkles only in the sunlight, and the ripple dances as it rests upon the ocean. Yet in neither sun nor ocean is the power that rests in you. Would you remain within your tiny kingdom, a sorry king, a bitter ruler of all that he surveys, who looks on nothing, yet who would still die to defend it? This little self is not your kingdom. Arched high above it and surrounding it with love is the glorious whole, which offers all its happiness and deep content to every part. The little aspect that you think you set apart is no exception. Love knows no bodies and reaches to everything created like itself. Its total lack of limit is its meaning. It is completely impartial in its giving, encompassing only to preserve and keep complete what it would give. In your tiny kingdom, you have so little. Should it not then be there that you would call on love to enter? Look at the desert, dry and unproductive, scorched and joyless, that makes up your little kingdom, and realize the life and joy that love would bring to it from where it comes and where it would return with you. The thought of God surrounds your little kingdom, waiting at the barrier you built to come inside and shine upon the barren ground. See how life springs up everywhere? The desert becomes a garden, green and deep and quiet, offering rest to those who lost their way and wander in the dust. Give them a place of refuge, prepared by love for them, where once a desert was. And everyone you welcome will bring love with him from heaven for you. They enter one by one into this holy place, but they will not depart as they had come, alone. The love they brought with them will stay with them, as it will stay with you. And under its beneficence, your little garden will expand and reach out to everyone who thirsts for living water, but has grown too weary to go on alone. Go out and find them, for they bring yourself with them, and lead them gently to your quiet garden and receive their blessing there. So will it grow and stretch across the desert, leaving no lonely kingdoms locked away from love, and leaving you inside. And you will recognize yourself and see your little garden gently transformed into the kingdom of heaven, with all the love of its creator shining upon it. The holy instant is your invitation to love, to enter into your bleak and joyless kingdom, and to transform it into a garden of peace and welcome. Love's answer is inevitable. It will come because you came without the body and interposed no barriers to interfere with its glad coming. In the holy instant, you ask of love only what it offers everyone, neither less nor more. Asking for everyone, everything, you will receive it, and your shining self will lift the tiny aspect that you tried to hide from heaven straight to heaven. No part of love calls on the whole in vain. No son of God remains outside his fatherhood. Be sure of this. Love has entered your special relationship and entered fully at your weak request. You do not recognize that love has come because you have not yet let go of all the barriers you hold against your brother. And you and he will not be able to give love welcome separately. You could no more know God alone than he knows you without your brother. But together, you could no more be unaware of love than love could know you not, or fail to recognize itself in you. You have reached the end of an ancient journey, not realizing yet that it is over. You're still worn and tired, and the desert's dust still seems to cloud your eyes and keep you sightless. Yet he whom you welcomed has come to you and would welcome you. He has waited long to give you this. Receive it now of him, for he would have you know him. Only a little wall of dust still stands between you and your brother. Blow on it lightly and be happy with laughter, and it will fall away. And walk into the garden love has prepared for both of you. That was such a beautiful analogy. I could just like visualize this beautiful garden growing bigger with everyone who comes in. I always think of that, with all of these special relationships, that we have, not only with our, significant other partner, but with our children, with our neighbors, with people we don't know, with opposing political people that, we might cast judgment on, it's everyone, right? It's everything. We can't be apart from anything. And it seems so simple, right? So simple to let the barriers down and allow love to enter and just blow the little bit of dust away that stands between you and your brother. It's such a beautiful analogy. Sometimes I want it to just get to the point, it's like, oh man, we're going to go through this whole analogy and this visualization of a desert. And, isn't this just making it more confusing? And I guess not really, it just kind of makes it more beautiful when you think of it in those terms without the body, right? Because we're always so focused, body focused. Any comments or questions? All right, guess we're going to be doing a lot of reading today. It's okay with me. All right, the two worlds. I feel like my mother had a book that was called The Two Worlds at one point, and I remember picking it up. I'm gonna have to search that and see if I can figure out what that was. Okay, let me get back to reading A Course in Miracles. The two worlds. You have been told to bring the darkness to the light and guilt to holiness. And you have also been told that error must be corrected at its source. Therefore, it is the tiny part of yourself, the little thought, that seems split off and separate, the Holy Spirit needs. The rest is fully in God's keeping and needs no guidance. Yet this wild and delusional thought needs help because in its delusions, it thinks it is the Son of God, whole and omnipotent, sole ruler of the kingdom. It's set apart to tyrannize by madness into obedience and slavery. This is the little part you think you stole from heaven. Give it back to heaven. Heaven has not lost it, but you have lost sight of heaven. Let the Holy Spirit remove it from the withered kingdom in which you set it off, surrounded by darkness, guarded by attack, and reinforced by hate. Within its barricades is still a tiny segment of the Son of God, complete and holy, serene and unaware of what you think surrounds it. Be you not separate, for the one who does surround it has brought union to you, returning your little offering of darkness to the eternal light. How is this done? It is extremely simple, being based on what this little kingdom really is. The barren sands, the darkness, and the lifelessness are seen only through the body's eyes. Its bleak sight is distorted, and the messages it transmits to you, who made it to limit your awareness, are little and limited, and so fragmented, they are meaningless. From the world of bodies made by insanity, insane messages seem to be returned to the mind that made it. And these messages bear witness to this world, pronouncing it as true. For you sent forth these messengers to bring this back to you. Everything these messages relay to you is quite external. There are no messages that speak of what lies underneath, for it is not the body that could speak of this. Its eyes perceive it not. Its senses remain quite unaware of it. Its tongue cannot relay its messages. Yet, God can bring you there if you are willing to follow the Holy Spirit through seeming terror, trusting Him not to abandon you and leave you there. For it is not His purpose to frighten you, but only yours. You are severely tempted to abandon Him at the outside ring of fear. But He would lead you safely through and far beyond. The circle of fear lies just below the level the body sees and seems to be the whole foundation on which the world is based. Here are all the illusions, all the twisted thoughts, all the insane attacks, the fury, the vengeance and betrayal, that were made to keep the guilt in place so that the world could rise from it and keep it hidden. Its shadow rises to the surface, enough to hold its most external manifestations in darkness and to bring despair and loneliness to it and keep it joyless. Yet its intensity is veiled by its heavy coverings and kept apart from what was made to keep it hidden. The body cannot see this, for the body arose from this for its protection, which depends on keeping it not seen. The body's eyes will never look on it, yet they will see what it dictates. The body will remain guilt's messenger and will act as it directs as long as you believe that guilt is real. For the reality of guilt is the illusion that seems to make it heavy and opaque, impenetrable, and a real foundation for the ego's thought system. Its thinness and transparency are not apparent until you see the light behind it. And then you see it as a fragile veil before the light. This heavy seeming barrier, this artificial floor that looks like rock, is like a bank of low dark clouds that seem to be a solid wall before the sun. Its impenetrable appearance is wholly an illusion. It gives way softly to the mountaintops that rise above it and has no power at all to hold back anyone willing to climb above it and see the sun. It is not strong enough to stop a button's fall, nor hold a feather. Nothing can rest upon it, for it is but an illusion of a foundation. Try but to touch it, and it disappears. Attempt to grasp it, and your hands hold nothing. Yet, in this cloud bank, it is easy to see a whole world rising. A solid mountain range, a lake, a city, all rise in your imagination. From the clouds, the messengers of your perception return to you, assuring you that it is there. Figures stand out and move about, actions seem real, and forms appear and shift from loveliness to the grotesque. And back and forth they go, as long as you would play the game of children's make-believe. Yet, however long you play it, and regardless of how much imagination you bring to it, you do not confuse it with the world below, nor seek to make it real. So should it be with the dark clouds of guilt, no more impenetrable and no more substantial. You will not bruise yourself against them in traveling through. Let your guide teach you their unsubstantial nature as he leads you past them. For beneath them is a world of light, whereon they cast no shadows. Their shadows lie upon the world beyond them, still further from the light. Yet from them to the light, their shadows cannot fall. This world of light, this circle of brightness, is the real world, where guilt meets with forgiveness. Here, the world outside is seen anew, without the shadow of guilt upon it. Here are you forgiven, for here you have forgiven everyone. Here is the new perception, where everything is bright and shining with innocence, washed in the waters of forgiveness, and cleansed of every evil thought you laid upon it. Here, there is no attack upon the Son of God, and you are welcome. Here is your innocence waiting to clothe you and protect you, and make you ready for the final step in the journey inward. Here are the dark and heavy garments of guilt laid by and gently replaced by purity and love. Yet even forgiveness is not the end. Forgiveness does make lovely, but it does not create. It is the source of healing, but it is the messenger of love and not its source. Here, you are led that God himself can take the final step unhindered, For here does nothing interfere with love, letting it be itself. A step beyond this holy place of forgiveness, a step still further inward, but the one you cannot take, transports you to something completely different. Here is the source of light, nothing perceived, forgiven, nor transformed, but merely known. This course will lead to knowledge, but knowledge itself is still beyond the scope of our curriculum. Nor is there any need for us to try to speak of what must forever lie beyond words. We need remember only that whoever attains the real world, beyond which learning cannot go, will go beyond it, but in a different way. Where learning ends, there God begins. For learning ends before him, who is complete where he begins, and where there is no end. It is not for us to dwell on what cannot be attained. There is too much to learn. The readiness for knowledge still must be attained. Love is not learned. Its meaning lies within itself. And learning ends when you have recognized all it is not. That is the interference. That is what needs to be undone. Love is not learned because there never was a time in which you knew it not. Learning is useless in the presence of your Creator, whose acknowledgement of you and yours of him so far transcend all learning that everything you learned is meaningless, replaced forever by the knowledge of love and its one meaning. Your relationship with your brother has been uprooted from the world of shadows, and its unholy purpose has been safely brought through the barriers of guilt, washed with forgiveness, and set shining and firmly rooted in the world of light. From there, it calls to you to follow the course it took, lifted high above the darkness and gently placed before the gates of heaven. The holy instant in which you and your brother were united is but the messenger of love, sent from beyond forgiveness to remind you of all that lies beyond it. Yet it is through forgiveness that it will be remembered. And when the memory of God has come to you in the holy place of forgiveness, you will remember nothing else, and memory will be as useless as learning, for your only purpose will be creating. Yet this you cannot know until every perception has been cleansed and purified, and finally removed forever. Forgiveness removes only the untrue, lifting the shadows from the world and carrying it safe and sure within its gentleness to the bright world of new and clean perception. There is your purpose now, and it is there that peace awaits you. You know, this kind of reminds me of, when you're going through something, and then when you get on the other side of it, you're like, oh my gosh, I thought that was so hard. And it really was nothing, right? It's like, I can remember before I ever had kids thinking, God, I have no time. I have no time at all. And then I had kids and I was like, what was I thinking? Like I had all the time in the world, but for some reason I thought I had no time. But then when you have kids and you really think that you have no time, you look back to when you didn't have kids and you're like, I could have done anything I wanted at any time at all, but I had put this constraint on myself, thinking that I had no time to do all these things. It kind of reminds me of that, like telling a story of what's to be in the future. Like in the future, like all of this learning will be for nothing, right? It's kind of like the real you is so far beyond all of this meaningless crap that it helps you to look at what's going on in your world right now, like maybe problems you have with people or disagreements you have with political situations, and you think that they're real, and then this reading transforms you to a place that actually does have meaning, and you look at all this and you're like, this is so silly. Like, why am I engaging in this ridiculousness, right?
Yeah, that's a really, really good way to look at it. And but you forget, like, you know, you kind of, I don't know, it's hard to remember that when you're going through it.
Exactly,
Yeah,
exactly. But you know,
that's a really good way.
yeah,
Mhm.
when you have this like reading, like this is what heaven really is. And what are you doing over here? You're just wasting time, like
Mhm.
being so silly, right?
Yeah, it's like when we look back on our childhood and things that we obsessed about and fretted about, especially our teenage years. But, you know, anytime, and we look back now that we're seeing from a much more inclusive perspective, we can look back on that and just kind of smile and shake our heads. It's like, oh, child, you just didn't know, you know, and that's true. And that's who we are, you know. we are those children who just don't know. And when we can look on the perspective through the eyes of wholeness, everything changes. It just has to. It just is. Because that just that one change of not thinking of ourselves as separate changes everything. It changes every reaction, every thought, every belief. It just has to change, and therefore the experiences expand with that knowing.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And it kind of gives you that choice now to say, okay, if this is where I'm going, if this is like the ultimate like place to be, then I can look at what's happening in my world right now and say, I'm not going to engage in this confrontation. I'm going to forgive instead, right? I'm going to welcome and forgive and come from a place of love because this is all meaningless. This is all just regurgitation, keeping me stuck in this place of illusion and fear.
Well, even the intellect of having to, you know, constantly explore, like, who is the I? And what meaning does the I have? And when does the I disappear? You know, on and on and on with all the philosophy of, um, you know, our spirituality. And we can, you know, have all these queries and puzzlements about the whole thing. But in truth, they're all just kind of blocks and more distraction from actually that state of being. So it's actually taking longer and doing more to, you know, thwart the joining or the oneness. And we say, oh, it's because I have to know. And once I know, but the state of duality can't really know everything. And it is everything. So when we accept that, then we're in a whole different place.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like in your mind, you've constructed this path to enlightenment that doesn't exist. And the only thing that's real is knowing that in this moment, I need do nothing but align with that one mind of God, right? And boom, the experience is there for you if you just allow yourself to not see your body as who you are for an instant and just realize that you're part of that one mind of God.
Great summation.
Yeah. The next chapter is quite long. Well, not quite long. The next chapter, chapter 19, the first section is quite long. So I'm not sure we would want to get into it. It's 1, 2, 3, 4. It's like 4 pages and a little bit. And then it's healing and faith. So I don't know. Do you guys want to go ahead and have me read it? I mean, I probably could read it in about 10 minutes, which means we have 5 minutes to discuss. Unless there's more we want to talk about chapter 18.
I'm fine with you reading it.
Let's do it. Okay. On to chapter 19. The attainment of peace, healing, and faith. We said before that when a situation has been dedicated wholly to truth, peace is inevitable. Its attainment is the criterion by which the wholeness of the dedication can be safely assumed. Yet we also said that peace without faith will never be attained. For what is dedicated to truth as its only goal is brought to truth by faith. This faith encompasses everyone involved, for only thus the situation is perceived as meaningful and as whole. And everyone must be involved in it, or else your faith is limited and your dedication incomplete. Every situation properly perceived becomes an opportunity to heal the Son of God. And he is healed because you offered faith to him, giving him to the Holy Spirit and releasing him from every demand your ego would make of him. Thus do you see him free, and in this vision does the Holy Spirit share. And since he shares it, he has given it, and so he heals through you. It is this joining him in a united purpose that makes this purpose real, because you make it whole. And this is healing. The body is healed because you came without it and joined the mind, in which all healing rests. The body cannot heal because it cannot make itself sick. It needs no healing. Its health or sickness depends entirely on how the mind perceives it and the purpose that the mind would use for it. It is obvious that a segment of the mind can see itself as separated from the universal purpose. When this occurs, the body becomes its weapon, used against this purpose, to demonstrate the fact that separation has occurred. The body thus becomes the instrument of illusion, acting accordingly, seeing what is not there, hearing what truth has never said, and behaving insanely, being imprisoned by insanity. Do not overlook our earlier statement that faithlessness leads straight to illusions. For faithlessness is the perception of a brother as a body, and the body cannot be used for purposes of union. If then you see your brother as a body, you have established a condition in which uniting with him becomes impossible. Your faithlessness to him has separated you from him and kept you both apart from being healed. Your faithlessness has thus opposed the Holy Spirit's purpose and brought illusions centered on the body to stand between you. And the body will seem to be sick, for you have made of it an enemy of healing and the opposite of truth. It cannot be difficult to realize that faith must be the opposite of faithlessness. Yet the difference in how they operate is less apparent, though it follows directly from the fundamental difference in what they are. Faithlessness would always limit and attack. Faith would remove all limitations and make whole. Faithlessness would destroy and separate. Faith would unite and heal. Faithlessness would interpose illusions between the Son of God and his Creator. Faith would remove all obstacles that seem to rise between them. Faithlessness is wholly dedicated to illusions. Faith wholly to truth. Partial dedication is impossible. Truth is the absence of illusions. Illusion, the absence of truth. Both cannot be together, nor perceived in the same place. To dedicate yourself to both is to set up a goal forever impossible to attain, for part of it is sought through the body, thought of as a means for seeking out reality through attack. The other part would heal, and therefore calls upon the mind and not the body. The inevitable compromise is the belief that the body must be healed and not the mind. For this divided goal has given both an equal reality, which could be possible only if the mind is limited to the body and divided into little parts of seeming wholeness, but without connection. This will not harm the body, but it will keep the delusional thought system in the mind. Here, then, is healing needed. It is here that healing is. For God gave healing not apart from sickness, nor established remedy where sickness cannot be. They are together. And when they are seen together, all attempts to keep both truth and illusion in the mind, where both must be, are recognized as dedication to illusion and given up when brought to truth, and seen as totally unreconcilable with truth in any respect or in any way. Truth and illusion have no connection. This will remain forever true, however much you seek to connect them. But illusions are always connected, as is truth. Each is united, a complete thought system, but totally disconnected from each other. And to perceive this is to recognize where separation is and where it must be healed. The result of an idea is never separate from its source. The idea of separation produced the body and remains connected to it, making it sick because of the mind's identification with it. You think you are protecting the body by hiding this connection, for this concealment seems to keep your identification safe from the attack of truth. If you but understood how much this strange concealment has hurt your mind and how confused your own identification has become because of it, you do not see how great the devastation wrought by your faithlessness. For faithlessness is an attack that seems to be justified by its results. For by withholding faith, you see what is unworthy of it and cannot look beyond the barrier to see what is joined with you. To have faith is to heal. It is the sign that you have accepted the at-one-ment for yourself and would therefore share it. By faith, you offer the gift of freedom from the past, which you received. You do not use anything your brother has done before to condemn him now. You freely choose to overlook his errors, looking past all barriers between yourself and him, and seeing them as one. And in that one, you see your faith is fully justified. There is no justification for faithlessness, but faith is always justified. Faith is the opposite of fear, as much a part of love as fear is of attack. Faith is the acknowledgement of union. It is the gracious acknowledgement of everyone as a son of your most loving Father, loved by him like you, and therefore loved by you as yourself. It is his love that joins you and your brother, and for his love, you would keep no one separate from yours. Each one appears just as he is perceived in the holy instant, united in your purpose to be released from guilt. You see the Christ in him, and he is healed, because you look on what makes faith forever justified in everyone. Faith is the gift of God, through him whom God has given you. Faithlessness looks upon the Son of God and judges him unworthy of forgiveness. But through the eyes of faith, the Son of God is seen already forgiven, free of all the guilt he laid upon himself. Faith sees him only now because it looks not to the past to judge him, but would see in him only what it would see in you. it sees not through the body's eyes, nor looks to bodies for its justification. It is the messenger of the new perception, sent forth to gather witnesses unto its coming, and to return their messages to you. Faith is as easily exchanged for knowledge as is the real world. Your faith arises from the Holy Spirit's perception and is the sign you share it with him. Faith is a gift you offer to the Son of God through him, and wholly acceptable to his Father as to him, and therefore offered you. Your holy relationship with its new purpose offers you faith to give unto your brother. Your faithlessness has driven you and him apart, and so you do not recognize salvation in him. Yet faith unites you in the holiness you see, not through the body's eyes, but in the sight of him who joined you and in whom you are united. Grace is not given to a body, but to a mind, and the mind that receives it looks instantly beyond the body and sees the holy place where it was healed. There is the altar where the grace was given, in which it stands. Do you then offer grace and blessing to your brother? For you stand at the same altar where grace was laid for both of you. And be you healed by grace together, that you may heal through faith. In the holy instant, you and your brother stand before the altar God has raised unto himself, and both of you. Lay faithlessness aside and come to it together. There will you see the miracle of your relationship as it was made again through faith. And there it is that you will realize that there is nothing faith cannot forgive. No error interferes with its calm sight, which brings the miracle of healing with equal ease to all of them. For what the messengers of love are sent to do, they do, returning the glad tidings that it was done to you and your brother, who stand together before the altar from which they were sent forth. As faithlessness will keep your little kingdoms barren and separate, so will faith help the Holy Spirit prepare the ground for the most holy garden that he would make of it. For faith brings peace, and so it calls on truth to enter and make lovely what has already been prepared for loveliness. Truth follows faith and peace, completing the process of making lovely that they begin. For faith is still a learning goal, no longer needed when the lesson has been learned. Yet truth will stay forever. Let then your dedication be to the eternal, and learn how not to interfere with it and make it slave to time. For what you think you do to the eternal, you do to you. Whom God created as his Son is slave to nothing, being Lord of all, along with his Creator. You can enslave a body, but an idea is free, incapable of being kept in prison or limited in any way, except by the mind that thought it. For it remains joined to its source, which is its jailer or its liberator, according to which it chooses as its purpose for itself. That was a lot, but I was thinking as I was reading it, going back to that, I need do nothing. I think so many times we think certain things within like holy relationships, like, oh, I have to do this, or I have to do that, or I need it to be this way. So I have to, do certain things or sacrifice certain things that I would like in order for it to be a certain way. And, it's all those illusory imaginings that our mind comes up with. And we can't even begin to imagine that if we just had faith, that it would all take care of itself, right? Because we think we have to have it a certain way. We think we have to do a certain thing, that it has to be like this. And all this is saying is just have faith. Just have faith and don't see yourself as a body and don't see your brother as a body and just do it and boom, it'll all take care of itself. And it goes back to I need do nothing, right? But have faith and see my brother not as a body.
It's really beautiful when you think about it. Mhm. Yeah.
Healing and faith and the little willingness, right?
Mm.
Any thoughts by anyone before we close today? I know we read a lot, but I feel like we had some good discussion along the way too. No burning desires to share. I have my cat who has joined me.
Aw.
Yeah, my dog is mine. He's putting me to sleep.
Yeah, cat has come and decided that it's nap time too. All right, well, wonderful to be here with you guys, and I thank you for sharing this with me. I know it's always I always get so much out of this, even though I've been reading this for what my son is going to be 32 this year, so I've been reading this for 32 years. It's a long time. But I still feel like it's just like the polishing of the lens. Every time I go through it, I understand more. I read something that I feel like I just read it for the first time because I'm at this other place of, understanding.
Very true.
All right. Well,
Thank you
thank
so much.
Great to
Thank
see you. Great to be here with you. Thanks for the conversations and see you next week.
Thank you.
All right. Bye.
Bye.